The headline flashed across my cracked phone screen as I stood in the dusty barn. Midwest Agri Group heir inherits $42 million in land assets. My inbox exploded with notifications. But one name froze my thumb mid-scroll: Aubrey, the woman who scoffed at meeting my parents and dumped me in their driveway. She was calling now, calling nonstop like her life depended on it. Before we get into the worst part of this betrayal, please subscribe, leave a like, comment, and tap that hype button to support the channel. I answered, calm and cold. Hey Aubrey, funny how money makes people remember what they lost. Her voice cracked with desperation. Ronan, I made a terrible mistake. Please, can we talk? I looked at the barn tools lined behind him like quiet soldiers waiting for orders. No, I whispered, but you'll hear me. 3 months earlier, everything was different. I was still the guy who tolerated too much, swallowed too many insults, paid for too many spa days without complaint. Agriculture technician? Aubrey had laughed when her girlfriends asked about my job at brunch. So basically a fancy farmer with a laptop? She sipped her overpriced mimosa while I paid the check. Again, I worked for Midwest Precision Farming, monitoring crop health through satellite imaging and soil sensors. The job was light on physical labor, heavy on data analysis. Good pay, stable hours, meaningful work. But Aubrey saw only dirt under fingernails that wasn't even there. Babe, can you cover my nails today? She'd ask every week. Then lashes, then hair treatments, then the girl's trip to Nashville she absolutely needed for her mental health. I was her personal ATM, and I let it happen because I thought that's what love looked like. The breaking point came when I took her to meet my parents. Charles and May Vale lived in a modest farmhouse 40 minutes outside town. Wooden porch with peeling paint, rusty mailbox leaning sideways. My father wore $12 boots from the farm supply store, and my mother drove a truck older than me. They lived simply because that's who they were, not because they had to. Aubrey stepped out of my car and stared. This is where you grew up? Yeah, I said, feeling something twist in my chest at her tone. She barely spoke during dinner. My parents were warm and welcoming, asking about her interests, sharing stories about the farm, showing genuine interest in getting to know her. My mother had made her famous pot roast, the one that usually made people ask for seconds. Aubrey picked at her food and checked her phone constantly, barely looking up when spoken to. My father asked about her hobbies. She gave one-word answers. My mother asked if she wanted to see the family photo albums. Aubrey declined with a tight smile that didn't reach her eyes. The discomfort in the room grew thick enough to cut. In the car afterward, she exploded. You brought me to meet poor farmers, Ronan. That house is falling apart. Your dad's boots have holes in them. Your mom's dress looked like it came from a garage sale. Do you understand what kind of life that means for us? They're good people, I said quietly, gripping the steering wheel. Good and broke are two different things. I didn't sign up for this. She crossed her arms, staring out the window with disgust. I can't do this. I can't marry into poverty. I want a real life with someone who has actual ambition, not someone content to analyze dirt for minimum wage. It's not minimum wage, I said. Might as well be. Look at where you came from, Ronan. Look at that sad little house. That's your ceiling. That's as good as it gets for you. The next day, she dumped me in their driveway. I'd driven back to help my father with some equipment repairs. She followed in her own car, told me it was over, and drove away without looking back, leaving me standing there like an abandoned piece of furniture nobody wanted. My mother found me there 20 minutes later, still standing in the same spot. She's gone, I said. I know, sweetheart. I saw from the window. She said you and Dad are poor. Said I have no ambition. My mother put her arm around me. Some people measure worth in dollars. Others measure it in character. She picked the wrong metric. I didn't understand what she meant then. I would later. 2 weeks later, Taylor showed me the photos. My best friend worked at an agricultural supply company repairing equipment, and his girlfriend ran in the same social circles as Aubrey. Man, you need to see this, Taylor said, sliding his phone across the bar where we'd met for drinks. Aubrey at a nightclub, wrapped around some guy in an expensive suit. More photos, kissing, dancing. His hand on places that used to be mine. The timestamp showed dates when she was still with me, still asking me to fund her lifestyle while she built another one behind my back. Who is he? I asked, my voice flat and emotionless. Bryce Dalton. Works at First National Bank, some administrative manager position. Throws money around like confetti at every club downtown. Real peacock type. I studied the photos carefully, memorizing details. The way she looked at him. The expensive restaurant backgrounds. The designer clothes I'd never seen her wear with me because I couldn't afford to take her nice places. When were these taken? I asked. Oldest one is from 6 weeks ago. Most recent is from last night. 6 weeks. She'd been cheating for 6 weeks before dumping me, probably longer. I said nothing. Something inside me went cold and quiet, like a lake freezing over in winter. I saved the photos and handed the phone back. You okay? Taylor asked, watching my face carefully. Fine, I lied. You don't look fine. You look like you're planning something. I'm not planning anything, I'm just processing. But I was planning. My mind was already turning over possibilities, consequences, timelines. Aubrey started posting on social media almost immediately after our breakup. Pictures of expensive dinners at steakhouses I couldn't afford, Bryce's arm around her shoulders in front of his luxury sedan, captions about upgrading and knowing your worth, and never settling for less than you deserve. One story showed her laughing at something off camera with the text, finally dating a real professional, not some cute broke farmer guy. I saved that too, screenshot after screenshot building a file. For 3 weeks, I watched her parade her new life across Instagram while I went to work, analyzed crop data, and stayed silent. People at the office asked if I was okay. My supervisor noticed I was quieter than usual. I told everyone I was fine. They believed me because I showed them nothing else. My apartment felt empty without her things scattered everywhere. No makeup cluttering the bathroom counter, no shoes blocking the hallway, no constant background noise of reality television. Just silence and space to think. I started running in the mornings, pushing myself harder than before. Started reading more, started planning systematically what came next. Not revenge yet, just observation, documentation, patience. Then my parents called me into their kitchen for a conversation that changed everything. Son, my father said one Saturday afternoon, sliding papers across the worn kitchen table, your mother and I are getting older. We've been talking to our lawyers about estate planning and asset transfers. I glanced at the documents. Land deeds, asset portfolios, corporate lease agreements, numbers that didn't make sense at first glance. What am I looking at? My mother smiled gently, that knowing smile she got when teaching me important lessons. Your inheritance, sweetheart. We wanted you to understand what's coming so you can prepare properly. I read the documents 3 times, then 4. 4,000 acres of prime farmland, grain storage facilities leased to major agricultural corporations, mineral rights generating passive income, or water rights worth fortunes in drought years, asset valuations that made my head spin and my hands shake slightly. 42 million, I whispered, looking up at them in disbelief. Give or take, depending on commodity markets, my father said casually, like we were discussing the weather forecast. The land's been in our family for 4 generations. We just kept acquiring adjacent properties when neighbors retired or moved on. Never saw a reason to spend it on fancy things we didn't need. Why didn't you ever tell me? I asked, still processing the information. Didn't seem important when you were growing up, my mother said, refilling my coffee cup like this was a normal conversation. We raised you to value work and character, not dollar signs and status symbols. Money changes people, and not usually for the better. We wanted you to develop your own identity first. But now you're old enough to handle it responsibly, my father added. You've proven yourself with your education, your work ethic, your choices. Well, most of your choices. He meant Aubrey. They'd never said anything negative about her directly, but I knew they'd seen through her from the start. I sat back in the old wooden chair, processing. My whole life, I thought we were scraping by. The modest house, the old vehicles, my parents' simple clothing, their refusal to buy anything new when something old still worked. It all screamed humble means. But they were sitting on a fortune, living like monks by choice, by philosophy. Does anyone else know? I asked. Our lawyers, our accountants, the companies we lease to, my father listed. We've kept it quiet intentionally. Some small towns talk, and we never wanted that kind of attention. People treat you differently when they know you have money. That girl who left you, Aubrey? My mother said gently. People like her come back when they smell money. You need to be ready for that, sweetheart. Be smart about it. I know, I said, an idea already forming. Do you? My father asked, studying my face the way he used to when I was young and trying to hide something. Because revenge is tempting, son, but it can consume you if you're not careful. I'll be careful, I promised. 2 days later, the news broke. Some regional business journal ran a feature story about generational wealth transfers in agricultural families, highlighting how farmland values had exploded over the past decade. My name appeared in print, Ronan Vale, 32, set to inherit extensive Midwest farming operations valued at approximately $42 million, making him one of the region's youngest agricultural heirs. My phone exploded. Old friends I hadn't spoken to in years. Distant relatives who'd never bothered before. High school acquaintances suddenly remembering how close we used to be. Former coworkers suggesting we grab drinks. Everyone suddenly very interested in my life. And Aubrey. 17 missed calls before noon. 20 by evening. Text messages filling my screen faster than I could read them. I blocked her number after reading the first few messages. They were exactly what I expected. Desperate, apologetic, pleading. "Ronan, I saw the news. I had no idea. I'm so sorry. Please talk to me. I made a huge mistake. I was scared and stupid. What we had was real. The money doesn't matter. I miss you. Can we just talk? Please? I need to explain." But she found other ways. Email, direct messages on every social media platform. She even showed up at my office 2 days later, but security turned her away when I called down and said I didn't know anyone by that name. Her messages grew more desperate each day, more apologetic, more insistent that she'd changed, that she'd realized her mistake, that money meant nothing compared to what we had together. I didn't respond, not yet. I was busy planning something she'd never see coming. Taylor helped me think it through over beers at his garage workshop. He was torquing bolts on a harvester engine while I paced between tool benches, working through the logistics. "So you're just going to ignore her forever?" he asked, not looking up from his work. "No," I said. "I'm going to invite her back." He dropped his wrench with a clatter. "Are you insane, after what she did? Listen, she humiliated me because she thought I was worthless, called me a broke farmer in front of the whole internet, dumped me in my parents' driveway like garbage. Now she wants back in purely because of money. If I just ignore her, she moves on, finds another target, learns nothing. She gets away clean." "And if you let her back?" Taylor asked, wiping grease from his hands. "I control the narrative," I said quietly, meeting his eyes. "I make her think she's won, that her apology worked, that we're rebuilding. Then I show her exactly what she threw away. Not just the money, everything. The character, the values, the family she insulted. I make her understand the magnitude of her mistake, and then I walk away on my terms." Taylor grabbed 2 fresh beers from his mini fridge, handed me one, and studied me carefully. "Man, that's cold. Like legitimately cold." She earned it. She mocked my parents to their faces. She cheated on me while I was paying her bills. She laughed about me online. This isn't about being petty. It's about consequences. "And Bryce?" "Collateral damage," I said. "But yes, he gets his too." "You've really thought this through. Every detail." I unblocked Aubrey's number that night. Within 3 minutes, she called. "Ronan. Oh my gosh, thank you for answering. I've been trying to reach you for days and days." "I know," I said calmly, keeping my voice neutral. "I needed time to think, to process everything. I understand. I completely understand. I was horrible to you. I panicked about the future and made terrible, stupid choices. But I never stopped caring about you. Never. The whole time with Bryce, I knew it was wrong. I knew I'd made a mistake." "We should talk," I said. "Face to face. No phones, no distractions. Come by my place tomorrow evening." The relief in her voice was pathetic. Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Ronan. Thank you so much for giving me this chance. You won't regret it." "We'll see," I said, and hung up. She arrived the next evening wearing clothes I'd paid for months ago, makeup perfect, hair freshly styled at a salon that probably cost more than my weekly groceries. I opened the door with a calm smile that didn't reach my eyes. "Come in," I said, stepping aside. My place was the same small rental she'd always complained about. 1 bedroom, basic furniture, nothing fancy. I watched her try to hide her disappointment as she sat on my secondhand couch, the one she used to call embarrassingly cheap. "You want tea?" I offered, playing the gracious host. "Sure. That would be nice." I made chamomile while she fidgeted in the living room, clearly rehearsing her apology speech. When I handed her the cup, I sat across from her in the armchair, not beside her on the couch, creating distance. "I'm listening," I said simply. She launched into it, a masterclass in manipulation that I recognized because I'd fallen for similar tactics before. How she'd been confused and scared about our future, worried about financial stability, afraid of ending up struggling. How Bryce had manipulated her with false promises and expensive gestures, making her feel special and valued in ways she'd been craving. How she realized too late that real love mattered more than money or status. How she'd been miserable every single day since leaving me, crying herself asleep, regretting everything. Bryce wasn't who I thought he was, she said, tears forming. He's shallow, controlling. He only cared about appearances. Being with him made me realize what I had with you, something real, something honest. What about the posts? I asked. The ones calling me a broke farmer? She flushed. I was hurt, defensive, trying to convince myself I'd made the right choice. It was stupid and mean, and I'm so sorry. And my parents? I was wrong about them, too. I judged them unfairly. I was shallow and materialistic. I see that now. It was all perfectly calculated. Every word chosen for maximum impact. Every tear timed for emotional manipulation. She'd probably practiced in the mirror. Things have changed, I said slowly, setting my own tea down. I've changed. Maybe we rushed into judgment before. Maybe we both needed perspective on what matters. Her eyes lit up with hope. Exactly. We can start fresh. Take things slow. Build something better this time. Maybe, I said, letting the word hang ambiguously in the air. Over the next 2 weeks, I let Aubrey believe she was winning. We had coffee at the cafe she used to drag me to, dinner at a mid-range restaurant where she tried not to look disappointed by my choice of venue. I kept my distance physically, played the part of someone cautiously reconsidering, someone who'd been hurt and needed time to rebuild trust. She played her part too, attentive, apologetic, asking about my work with genuine seeming interest, laughing at my jokes, touching my arm at appropriate moments, acting like the girlfriend she'd never actually been. Meanwhile, Bryce was running his mouth at the bank. Taylor's girlfriend overheard him bragging to coworkers about stealing some farmer's girlfriend, laughing about how easy it was to outclass rural types, with a little money and sophistication. He was telling anyone who'd listen that he'd moved on to better options anyway, that Aubrey was too clingy. When Taylor told me, I just smiled. Good. Let him talk. Let him think he won. What are you planning? Taylor asked. You'll see. Aubrey started appearing in public with me again, carefully posting cropped photos that suggested we were rebuilding. Second chances, she captioned one photo of our coffee cups side by side. Growth, she wrote under another. Her friends commented with heart emojis and supportive messages about true love finding its way back. She thought she'd successfully crawled back into my life and my future fortune. Then I stopped paying for things. Can you cover my nails this week? She asked during a phone call, her tone casual like old times. My regular girl had a cancellation, and I can grab the slot if I go today. Actually, I'm budgeting pretty tight right now, I lied smoothly. The inheritance is tied up in legal processes, estate lawyers, tax attorneys, probate procedures. Might be months before I actually see any of it as liquid assets. Silence on the other end. Then, oh, okay, no problem, I understand. But it was a problem. Over the following days, she grew increasingly anxious. The free ride she'd been expecting wasn't materializing. She started asking careful questions about timelines and asset liquidity, disguising them as innocent curiosity about my life. So when do you actually get access to everything? She asked over dinner. Hard to say. Could be 6 months. Could be a year. These things are complicated when you're dealing with agricultural assets, land transfers, corporate leases. Her smile tightened. That long? At least. My parents are still alive and managing everything. The inheritance doesn't fully transfer until they decide to step back completely. They're in their 60s, but still sharp. Could be years, honestly. I watched the calculations happening behind her eyes. This wasn't the quick windfall she'd imagined. One evening, she thought I was in the shower. I was actually standing quietly in the hallway, testing a theory. I heard her pick up my laptop from the coffee table, heard the keyboard clicking as she tried to access it. The password attempt failed. She swore quietly under her breath, a harsh word she never used around me. I walked back into the room casually, toweling my hair. Looking for something? She jumped like she'd been shocked. No, just thought I'd check the weather on your computer, that my phone's charging in the bedroom. I smiled like I believed her. Weather's on every phone. You don't need a computer for that. Just ask your voice assistant. Her face flushed red. Right. Yeah, sorry, I wasn't thinking. I said nothing more, but I'd confirmed what I needed to know. She wasn't back for love or second chances. She was back for access to money she thought she was entitled to. The confrontation with Bryce happened unexpectedly at a grocery store parking lot on a Saturday afternoon. He approached me while I was loading bags of supplies into my truck bed, positioning himself too close, trying to intimidate with proximity and size. You're Ronan, right? He said, his cologne overpowering in the fresh air. That's right, I replied, not stopping my work. Bryce Dalton. I think we should talk about Aubrey. I leaned against my truck, casual and unbothered. What about her? She's been texting me, says she's confused, says you're playing games, stringing her along with promises you're not keeping. That's not cool, man. She's been through enough emotional turmoil without you adding to it. Through enough? I laughed, actually laughed. You mean she's not getting what she wants fast enough? His jaw tightened visibly. Watch yourself. I know guys like you. Small town, small-minded, limited worldview. You got lucky with some family money, and now you think you're something special. But you're still just a farmer analyzing dirt. And you're what, exactly? A mid-level bank administrator who peaked at buying bottle service to impress women half your age? His face reddened, anger rising. You want to take this further? Not particularly, I said calmly. But if you're offering, I'm not backing down. He shoved my shoulder, a weak attempt at physical dominance. I didn't move, didn't flinch. He shoved again, harder this time, trying to provoke a reaction. I stepped aside smoothly, a simple sidestep, and his momentum carried him forward, off balance. He stumbled, tried to catch himself on my truck, missed, and face-planted onto the asphalt parking lot. A couple loading groceries, 2 cars over, started laughing. An old man pushing a cart shook his head in amusement. Bryce scrambled to his feet, humiliated, his palm scraped and bleeding slightly, his expensive shirt torn at the shoulder. You'll regret this, he spat, trying to salvage dignity. I sincerely doubt that, I said, climbing calmly into my truck. As I drove away, I watched him in the rearview mirror, standing there looking small and foolish, examining his scraped hands while strangers walked past smirking. The damage to his ego was worse than any physical injury I could have inflicted. Aubrey called that night, her voice shrill with anger. What did you do to Bryce? He called me crying, said you attacked him in public. He approached me aggressively. He shoved me twice. He fell on his own. That's what happened. There were witnesses. You embarrassed him. People were laughing at him. He said you humiliated him. He embarrassed himself, I said calmly, but I appreciate you showing such immediate concern for him. Really clarifies where your priorities actually lie. What's that supposed to mean? It means you're next, Aubrey. Your turn is coming. I hung up before she could respond, before she could manipulate or explain or cry her way out of the corner she'd backed herself into. The final act required careful staging and perfect timing. I invited Aubrey to a celebration dinner at my parents' house, telling her they wanted to see her again, to bury the hatchet and start fresh as a family. They feel bad about how things ended, I lied smoothly. They want to make amends. She agreed immediately, probably imagining a transformed estate with her new elevated status secured, picturing herself as the gracious future mistress of a multi-million-dollar agricultural empire. Taylor helped me coordinate the timing and witnesses. My parents, bless them, agreed to play along once I explained my full plan. My father actually smiled, a rare occurrence. You're sure about this, son? He asked, but his eyes showed approval. Completely sure. She needs to understand consequences. Aubrey arrived dressed like she was meeting royalty. Designer outfit I'd never seen before. Expensive jewelry that caught the light. Makeup and hair professionally done. Confidence radiated from her as she stepped out of her car. I met her in the driveway of the same modest house she'd mocked 3 months earlier. Her face fell immediately when she saw where we were. We're eating here? At this house? Of course. Where else would we celebrate with my parents? Inside, my parents greeted her politely but coolly. The table was set simply with mismatched plates and everyday silverware. Roast chicken, steamed vegetables, homemade bread, a simple salad. Good, honest food, humble presentation, nothing fancy, nothing impressive. I watched Aubrey's disappointment grow with every passing minute, her forced smile becoming more strained as reality failed to match her expectations. She couldn't help herself. The criticism started subtly. So, Charles, May, what are your plans now that Ronan's inheriting all these assets? Thinking about upgrading the house? Maybe something more modern? My mother smiled gently, that patient smile she used with rude people. We like our house just fine, dear. It has everything we need. But surely with all that money available, you'd want something more comfortable, more appropriate to your actual financial status. We're plenty comfortable, my father said, his tone final. Comfort isn't about square footage. Aubrey looked at me with barely concealed frustration, her eyes asking why I wasn't backing her up. I just smiled and ate my chicken. Midway through dinner, I excused myself and returned with my laptop, connecting it to the old television in the living room. I wanted to show everyone something, I announced. A little trip down memory lane. The first video played, Aubrey at brunch months ago, mocking my job to her friends. Fancy farmer with a laptop. Her voice rang out clearly, her friends laughing. The camera caught everything, Every dismissive gesture, every condescending smile. Aubrey went pale. Where did you get that? You posted it publicly, I said. Instagram story. I just saved it before it disappeared. Seemed important to preserve. The next video showed her calling me a cute broke farmer guy in another story. Then screenshots of her messages to Bryce during our relationship, flirting and planning dates while I was paying her rent. Then security camera footage I'd installed showing her trying to access my laptop, her frustrated expression when the password failed. Ronan, stop this right now, she whispered, her voice shaking. Why? You wanted everyone to see your life, to see how you'd upgraded. I'm just sharing my perspective on our relationship. My parents watched from their seats, along with 3 local agricultural partners whose opinions carried real weight. They observed in silence as Aubrey's facade collapsed. You humiliated me for being a farmer, I said. You dumped me in this driveway because you thought my family was poor. You came back only when you saw money, and then tried to access my financial information. I never meant... You texted Bryce about inheritance timelines and asset transfers. You told your friends you were securing your future. I have every message. She started crying, mascara streaking. I made mistakes. I'm sorry. The door burst open. Bryce stumbled in, drunk. Aubrey, you don't need to deal with this manipulation. Bryce, how did you know I was here? You texted me. You said Ronan was threatening you. I didn't send anything. I did, I said calmly. You left your phone unattended. Wasn't hard to send a message. Bryce's expression shifted from confusion to outrage. You set this up. I documented your reality. You set yourselves up. He lunged at me, sloppy and telegraphed. I dodged, redirected his momentum, and sent him crashing into a bookshelf. He collapsed, gasping, humiliated but not hurt. Stay down. Aubrey rushed to him. Bryce, just go. After what he did? He wheezed. After what you both did, I said. You cheated, lied, schemed, and treated me like I was disposable. I gestured around the modest room. This house? Bought for $20,000. Those barns you mocked? $3 million a year in lease revenue. The fields you dismissed? 4,000 acres worth $35 million. My parents never flaunted wealth. They built something real. Aubrey finally understood what she'd thrown away. You left me for poverty that never existed, then came back for money you'll never touch. And you brought him because you needed someone to feed your victim narrative. Bryce tried to stand again. I guided him back down, firm but not rough. He stayed. I turned to my parents' colleagues. Thank you for witnessing this. I faced the 2 of them. You're going to leave and stay away. If you contact me, I release everything. Your messages, attempted banking access, today's assault. Is that clear? Crystal, Bryce muttered. Aubrey sobbed silently. Good. Get out. They staggered out together. At the door, Aubrey said, I did love you once. No, you loved what I could provide. She flinched and left. The door shut with finality. My parents' partners shook my hand and left quietly. My father's hand landed on my shoulder, my mother hugged me. Through the window, I watched Bryce's car disappear into the dark. 2 people who came chasing money and left with humiliation and consequences. Outside on the porch, the night was calm, the fields stretching under a star-filled sky. My inheritance wasn't just land, it was knowing my worth without proving it to anyone. I deleted their contacts permanently. No second chances. The barn lights flickered on as darkness settled. My father stepped beside me. You feel better? He asked. Yeah, I said. I really do.